Thanks. Thanks, John. First and foremost, I didn't expect to have such a big crowd, to be honest. When Paul spoke to me about this, I thought it was just an informal chat over teatalk and things like that. Just a quick one. I think amongst all of us here, there's probably one person in this room who will not be changing careers, and that's Ariel, right? I can't imagine being studying in med school and being a doctor and then changing careers upstream. So you want to get up and leave shortly, be my guest? Just a joke. Okay, look, there's no real preparation that I've made, to be honest. What I've done to kind of like get a bit of a plug for my company, if you like, is I prepared some slides on AirAsia, to be honest with you. It really is a cool place to work. All right, there are some buts, and I can address those buts later on. But the second part of my sharing with you would be about working in AirAsia and some of the values I personally think makes AirAsia a very good place to work in. But before that, the earlier sessions will be more or less about what I've gone through from a personal basis. Just a little bit of background, if you may. I started off as a management trainee in the now defunct company called Rothmans of Palma, Malaysia. It's a tobacco company. And I started off in 1987, about 6 months after I graduated. Now, 1987, to be honest with you guys, is a year where you wouldn't want to graduate in. Why? Recession. And just about everywhere you go, there's no jobs. Mind you, I was actually a scholar in a bank called Chung Kiao Bank. Right? They paid me 4 years for my education, and when I came out, they told me, sorry, no job. So the education was free, but I didn't have what was supposed to be a secure job after you graduated. Okay? So it was a bit of a luck, if you like, that I got a job in Rothmans, because I was actually eating in this place called Waisekai in SS2. Anybody knows? The Hawker Street, right? And I was with my girlfriend at a point in time, soon to be wife at a point in time. And I met this coursemate who said, Kenny, didn't you apply for this management trainee job in Rothmans? And I said, to be honest, I've given up applying. In those days, for some of you who are younger, you don't have computers where you can just print copies and just sign, right? We hand wrote each and every one of our applications. Alan is laughing. He knows what I mean. We hand wrote each and every one. Yeah? So what I did was I actually went back to the house, looked through the advertisement, and discovered that the following day was a closing day. Okay? And I was staying in a room in section 17 in PJ. Rothmans was just around the corner. I went on my motorbike the next morning and hand-delivered the letter. Okay? They called me for an interview, and I was told later on that there were 600 applicants. They took 2 people, me and another girl. And the rest, they said, is history. So a lot of it has to do with luck as well. I think they selected me, they shortlisted me because my letter was on top of the pile. It must be, right? But that's how the story goes, and I think one of the things I wanted to share with you guys is that no matter what anybody might tell you about why people change careers, why you become successful in what you do, I think a lot of it has got to do with luck as well. A lot of successful people say no such thing as luck, but I do believe luck plays a role in it. If I hadn't met that person in this Hawker Street, if I hadn't gone back to write that letter, things could have been much different for me. I was actually prepared at that point in time to continue with a sales job that I was holding down. It was for a company called YY. How many people still remember YY? Motorola. They were selling office equipment, fax machines, franking machines. I was doing some decent income. I was earning 300 ringgit salary, and I got another 300 odd from allowances and commission. 600, I could pay for rental for my house. I could send some money back to my parents, and I had a girlfriend. Not bad. Okay. So in any case, that was what I wanted to share with you from the beginning. I spent, at the end of it, I spent 20 years in that one company that eventually became bought over by BAT. And then for the next 6-8 years or so would be the rather adventurous ones, which I think I'll share with you shortly, okay? But could I perhaps just ask this question to all of you? Why do you work?
Okay.
Good. Anybody else? Why do you work? Come on. For money, right? Who else? A good place to? Right, okay, fair enough. A good place to learn about people's character. For money. What else? to spend your time, you must come to work in AirAsia.
HR is behind you, you know.
Anybody else? Come, Niraj.
Good for life partner.
Yeah, why not? That's a good one. Joe, is it? Right. Niraj, why do you work?
To fulfill all the things on my bucket list, to afford luxuries and necessities.
Amazing. Who else? Let's see. Anybody want to volunteer? Can I hear from who's the youngest here? Who should be the youngest person here? Emily? No?
Doctor.
Ariel, perhaps. To save people? It must be, right? Anybody else? I'm looking for one answer actually. Anybody else? Some people will say they work for fulfillment, right? But I like the first question from Jonathan, right? Jonathan said pay. I believe all of us work for money. Even if you work in a non-profitable organization, you work for money as well, right? So that's a given, that's a base, I think. At the bottom of Maslow's hierarchy, you will say the foundation is money, right? But some people, when you go to talks and all that, they say they work for fulfillment, they work to leave behind legacy and all that. Now, I don't believe it's untrue. I think the reason why we work differs from one point in your life cycle to another. See you, Alan. When you first start off, and the reason why I wanted to have a young person answering that question, when you first start off and you graduate from school, you probably work because you want independence from your parents. You don't want to be told how you spend your money, right? If you take money from your parents will say, watch what you spend. I don't want you to spend it on, I want to say CDs, but nobody buys CDs anymore, right? On smartphones and whatnot. But I think young people start working because they want to have their own level of independence so that they can spend the money autonomously, they can move out and have fun and whatnot. There was a time in my life when I first started working, it was 100% for money only. So when we graduated, you didn't care where you worked. You look for a job, anybody who's stupid enough to employ you, get a job and get paid, and that's it. Hopefully you get promoted and you make lots of money from sales commissions and something else. And then like Niraj said, the money is used to fulfill other needs. Your family, your parents, go holidays and all that. So during my time, people do not work, generally, people do not work for satisfaction. We work because of money. Right? How many agree with me on that? Right? But today, in today's world, I think a lot of Gen Ys, or Gen Zs if you like, work not just for money, because their parents can afford to tell them, nah, if your boss is not kind to you, leave, we will support you. Come home. Alright? And I could be one of those parents very soon as well, yeah? To be honest with you.
It's all your fault.
Yeah. Why is that happening? Now, those days when I used to be much younger, we didn't have so much information at our fingertips. You can't research, you can't Google jobs, you don't have companies like JobsDB, you don't have headhunters. So a lot of things, a lot of information is not accessible to us. So you just kind of just carried on, right? I was having a conversation just now with Karen, and we said that, sometimes we work because we continue working, even though we are not very happy, because we had no choice. We just had to soldier on. Because people my generation, we had to look after our parents and our in-laws. We had to look after ourselves and our kids as well. 3 generations. I think young people today just need to take care of themselves. So it's a bit different during our time. And because we were a bit more stupid, we were not, accessible to so much information, we just carry on from what we know. It's a bit of a like kata bawah tempurung kind of analogy. But today young people can research anything, anytime. They know about competition. They know whether they are fairly paid. Right? They know what their other colleagues are getting, not just in Malaysia, but other countries as well, at the click of a button. So young people become a lot more selective, and they become a lot more daring with their decisions. They know that people out there want them. And that's one of the traits, if I can just swing back to AirAsia a bit, that's one of the reasons why AirAsia does well. Paul was just asking me about turnover in AirAsia. Turnover is generally, I think, pretty high in AirAsia, to be honest. But for every one person who quits, about 3 to 5 are willing to come in. Without the use of headhunters, I must qualify. We stopped using headhunters for a while now, primarily because we are a low-cost airline, and we try to save as much money as we can. The only aspect that we do not save on, mind you, is safety. Right? Everything else that we can, the usage of headhunters, we do not use. It's by word of mouth, it's by friends recommending friends, and going to colleges and talking to people, things like that. Okay? So the question, why do we work, will then lead me to another question next, as to why do we change jobs? Jonathan, you want to start again? Oh, your hand shot out so fast just now. Niraj, yes.
Career progression.
Career progression, yes. What else? Come on.
More satisfaction.
More satisfaction, okay. In a way, it could be career progression as well, yeah. Anybody else?
Try different things.
Trying different things. Again, there's one answer I'm looking for. Come on.
Better offer.
More money, better offer. What about, sorry, Raymond?
Change in life priorities.
Change in life priorities. What about if you're forced to go? What about if you can't get along with your bosses? Right?
Get rid of the boss.
I'm sorry? Get rid of the boss. How we wish, right? Tony Fernandez. I think for all the reasons that you mentioned is good. Those are all the pull factors, yeah? I think people in Jobs TV will tell you that there's push and pull. When you're relatively happy with your job, and there are some other people outside there attracting you with promises of better career, more money, more fulfillment, then the choice become earlier because you are relatively okay in your place, right? But you can move on to something else better. But if you are in a situation whereby you have to go, you've hit a glass ceiling, or you can't get along with somebody in the office, and that somebody is a very influential person, or I don't know what else. If the push becomes a lot heavier than the pull, you are going to be in a situation whereby you might move into a job which you are not necessarily going to be happier with. Am I right? And I can tell you in my career, things like that has happened before as well. So I think for those of you who have just started off, don't be down, don't be depressed if you come across a situation whereby you have to go. It's actually fine, because if you work 20, 30 years, there will come a point in your life where you move because you have to move, not because you want to move. Okay, I'm okay with that. I think all of us have to accept that as well. Now, the topic of why you change jobs as well, I think will lead some of you to ask me questions later on when I share with you some of my experiences. Why did I move jobs, for example, right? Now, remember, I spent nearly 20 years in one industry, one company actually, and when I left that company, the only thing I knew how to do was to sell cigarettes and tobaccos and cigars. Nothing else. I didn't know anything else about banking, property, telecommunications, entertainment, none at all. So Kimberly was asking me, why did you, what made you change your jobs midstream? So I'll reserve that for a bit later, right? Okay? I'll come back to that, Kim. Okay, just a quick one. This is, in a nutshell, what I've done in the last 26 years. This company gave me a lot of foundation. I'm indebted, to be honest, to that company. It got me away from the doldrums that I was in. They paid us extremely well. Now, just to share with you a little bit of what happened to me. I was 24 years old when I joined Rothmans as a management trainee. The traineeship period was supposed to be 1.5 years, and then you become an executive and you climb the ranks to become a manager. Now, in 8 months, something happened in that company. There was a big shake-up, and I think about 8-9 managers were told to go. So I was one of those who were plucked out from traineeship and say, Wong, you are ready, go. So the company sent me to Malacca to become an area sales manager. I was one of those people who have never become an executive. I didn't know what's an executive. So, it was sink or swim, to be honest. And you had to swim, Kim. Yeah? You can't sink because people depended on me, right? But can you imagine at 24, I was given a 2-liter company car at that point in time, quite decent. There was a company driver. We had a golf club membership. We traveled on business and first class. And we stayed in 5-star, 6-star hotels. 1987. All right? So that's the reason why I stayed 20 years in that company. So Hands up, I worked because of money. Yes, I did. Okay. It was also coincidental that I was a smoker, and I was smoking already way before legal age. And getting 3 cartons of free cigarettes a month was not a bad thing. So Dr. Ariel is probably not what I would prescribe. I've since stopped smoking, by the way, a lot healthier than I used to be. But can you imagine a young person in that kind of situation? Who amongst you, if you got that kind of situation, will not think of leaving? Will you think of leaving? You won't. And because of that company, I traveled probably, I don't know, halfway around the globe. They never stinge on training. They send you to various kind of courses. The company is all about learning as you go. Every 2 or 3 years, they will put you into different jobs. So you don't feel like as if you don't feel bored at all, right? And if you reach a certain level, they send you overseas. Expatriate packages are very good, you know. So you don't think of leaving. Okay? So that company was bought over by this company about 12 years in my job. And in order to survive in that new environment, you had to change as well. John was talking about mindset change and all that. You really had to, because these two companies were exactly the opposite. Rothmans was entrepreneurial, very spontaneous. BAT was very systems oriented, very process driven, very proper, which can be bureaucratic as well. So I had to kind of adjust myself to that scenario. So all in all, 20 years, and then I hit a glass ceiling. I began to move into an area whereby I wasn't dealing with Malaysians anymore, and I was dealing with people from all walks of life, from different nationalities. That was when cultural values and things like that start to be a bit of a problem. All right? Some people think that certain things are possible, can be done, even though they do not understand the local nuances. Right? And even if you try to explain to them to the best of your ability what local nuances are, they want to force their way through. Now, a company like BAT has sets of global standards that they normally do not budge. They call it best practices, they call it things like that, where this philosophy has got to be cascaded everywhere. So I began to have problems with my bosses. And BAT was a company where you have a lot of matrix reporting. Dotted lines, dotted lines, dotted lines. Came a point where I wasn't happy anymore. And I think there was one question asked of me earlier. When do you know that it's time to go? It's similar to the question as when do you know it's time to get married, to be honest. How many married people here? Married people? When did you think it was right to get married?
3 years after
But what made you feel that it's right to get married?
the friend's father took the gun.
Who else? Paul, you must share. Any ideas? Anybody? Anybody else? You don't wake up one day and say, I'm ready to get married, right? You don't. So the same way, the same things as to changing jobs or being in a job that you probably do not feel happy anymore. But to me, number one, if you wake up in the morning and you don't feel like going to work, and that happens way too often, that's one sign. Number two, achievements at work do not mean anything to you anymore. It doesn't give you the thrill anymore. You don't feel motivated anymore when your boss tells me, well done, good job. All right? And number three, you are passed over more than 3 times for things that you want, whether it's a promotion, whether it's that increment you're looking for, or that job you're looking for. Then you got to decide what to do. And in my opinion, you do not decide, from the point in time when you decide that it's enough, until the point when you finally go, it can take a year, sometimes 2 years, depending on your level of seniority. So the guys in the the HR department will agree with what I said. So for those of you who do not feel very happy waking up in the morning, going to work, you better start planning now, because it will take you about a year, maybe 2, before you get the job that you want. Honestly. So what happened to me, I left BAT. I left BAT when I was 42, and it was a point in time when I had to decide to go, because if I stayed on, I will be so entrenched in that industry that I really can't do anything else. Now what happened to me, and I was lucky because I could stop working. I stopped working for a year. Within that year, I had to brainwash myself. I had to kind of unlearn so that I can relearn. Now BAT was, in 20 years in one company, in one industry, you can imagine the kind of things that's in my storage, right? So I had to kind of take out those things which I do not want to keep and just keep the things that I want to keep. That 1 year that I wasn't working helped me a lot because I could focus on my family, I could focus on things in my bucket list that I wanted to check through. And when I finally went back to work again, I could kind of like psych myself into putting myself into that situation. Now, what happened to me was I moved to this company called Packet One, which was a startup telco with a product called WiMAX, which was arguably 4G, but perhaps a lot closer to 3.75G. Right? Now, I knew nothing about the product, Why I went in there and why they took me in was because of my years of experience in dealing with consumer products. All right? And also building and establishing brands. That was what they wanted us to do. So for those things that we did, we were successful. But the product, unfortunately, didn't live up to its promise. And after two and a half years or so, I knew that I had to go. And then I was in a situation where it was like what I said earlier. I was generally okay. There was no push factors, but there was a lot of pull from the other side. So TGV came knocking, and it was through a headhunter, and the pull factors were very strong. They were offering me a chief operating officer's position, something that would take me away from my, if you like, my comfort zone, and maybe do something better. So things were okay, the terms were good and all that, so I said, let's go, let's do it. And cinemas was an industry that I liked. I loved movies. I loved the dynamism of the whole thing, and I had ideas as to what I wanted to do. So it was good. 5 months into the job, they made me the CEO. Raymond was there with me at that point in time. And fast forward to 2 years later, things were not that good anymore as well. All right. Again, it came to a point where there was a bit of a push. And again, pull came. This time, no headhunters. Right? No headhunters. And I was talking to some people, and they were saying, why don't you come and have a look at the place? That's how it happened. I didn't go to 1, 2, 3 job interviews. So the short story of what happened in the last 26 years was just exactly like that. So one thing that was common across all these companies is that they all dealt with consumers. Those are all essentially B2C companies. That was the only string that I had of commonality that I had, and I think as far as I was concerned, even until now, I think my strength lies in consumers, understanding consumers. So that was what I did in the last 26 years, and these are some of the products and the things that I did. Cigarettes, at that point in time, we were selling more imagery than the product. So it's all about Dunhill means suave, rich, luxury, what else have you. Ken was all about party and fashion, dance. Palmer was all about adventure, roughing it and whatnot. So it was all about selling an image potentially to people who want to move, switch brands. And when I moved to Packet One, the culture of the company was what I really loved, because they were very gung-ho, they were very spontaneous, and they were very rebellious. They were controversial, right? They had no problems doing controversial things. Now this campaign, for those of you, can anybody remember this campaign here? Yeah. This campaign was actually aimed at cutting off, what we call landlines, right? TM. We were going against the giant and say, cut it off. And of course, some of the campaigns that we had were kind of borderline controversial. For some of you remember that, yeah. Guess what? That campaign ran for 10 days, in grand total, 10 days. We didn't have any more money. On the 8th day, I was hauled to the Deputy Minister of Children, Family Affairs and something to say, pull out that ad. Right? We stopped that ad after 10 days, but I think the reach and the impact was good enough. We converted a lot of customers, but again, unfortunately, at that point in time, we couldn't sustain the product. So there were a lot of churn. And when I went into TGV, we brought in, together with Raymond at the point in time, we brought in IMAX, which is a pretty good experience in movie watching. And TGV is the only cinema operator in the country that has a license to screen IMAX and build IMAX cinemas for the foreseeable future anyway. And together with Raymond as well, we introduced the Beaniplex, which is, anybody knows Beaniplex here? It is like this gigantic bean bags that you put on the floor. You can watch a movie in comfort. can do other things too, but you know. So it was pretty successful. Now the problem with the Miniplex is that you couldn't put enough seats into that hall. You had to make sure there's enough space. So for the fact that even you can fill up the whole cinema, it's very hard for you to make a lot of money from it. So it is more like a branding and a positioning tool than anything else. Okay, any questions so far? Please interrupt me, please ask any questions even. Yeah, please.
In your progression, how do you market yourself to get the full better?
I actually didn't market myself at all, honestly. Sorry?
How did it come?
If I think back, during the tobacco days, we didn't have internet and all that, but it's all mass media. So we had a lot of events and functions with people from the Star, from Utusan, from Nanyang, from Hsinchu, from everywhere. Everywhere we have a World Cup, for example, we invite them for a junket to Club Med, and we'll have a 3-day five-a-side competition, give away 40 TVs and stuff like that. From there, I began to know a lot of journalists and whatnot. But it was all about yourself talking to people. There's no internet, there's no exchanging of Facebook and stuff like that. It's all about face-to-face, one-to-one. But even at that point in time, I didn't want to go anywhere. I think it was probably later on after that the advent of technology. I think I signed into Facebook 2006, 2007, I think, that you started to find out, hey, there's a tool here that you can actually, share experiences and whatnot. But something, I think it's not so much about marketing yourself, but just as long as you do your best in your role, you begin to get successes. I can count among some of the things that I've mentioned here as if you like, successes along with my other teammates at that point in time. So people start talking and say, oh, you are the one who did that, you are the one who did that, Maybe that helps. But I can tell you one thing. The one thing that I can tell you, Kat, is it? Yeah. In that 1 year, when I wasn't working, I had Excel spreadsheets of the number of headhunters I contacted. And there must be 100 over of them. Malaysia, Taiwan, Singapore, Hong Kong, China, Thailand, everywhere. I Googled them up. I contacted them by phone or just email, cold, and I started building relationships with them. So out of 100, 120, maybe 20, 30 replies to you, you just talk to them for a year. Sometimes the jobs don't come. And even if you move on to any other roles, it's customary for me to also tell them, hey, I'm moving on, let's keep in touch. Some of these headhunters, I recruited to help me look for people. All right, some of them stay with you for a while. So it's all about you making friends with people, touching bases and things like that. Why am I here today? Is because Paul and I occasionally we meet over breakfast and we say, hey, what's up? What's happening? Can you help me? Can I help you? And that's how it goes. So I don't think it's about marketing yourself, but just making sure that you spread your wings, right? And it's not just, for those of you who believe just in hiding yourselves behind the internet, please don't do that. That gets you somewhere, but you got to get out and meet people as well. Okay? Hope that answers the question. So, short story, there I am now. Somebody told me that when I wore the cap, they reminded them of Tony. I said, I think something must be wrong with their eyes. Okay, now AirAsia. AirAsia is a very interesting place to work in. Now from here onwards, I'll tell you guys to pay attention to what I'm saying, because there might be something at the end of it. I might ask you some questions and we might give away some things as well, right? Just pay attention to what I say, or perhaps if you want, whip up your smartphones and do some research. How many of you know the story about how AirAsia started? Anybody? Niraj? No? It is the 1 ringgit thing. Yes, it is. It is. Let me just share with you. It all started with these two persons. See how slim he was? Tony Fernandez and Kamaruddin were friends from the music industry. They knew nothing about aviation, and they bought the company for 1 ringgit and inherited 2 old Boeing 737s and 40 million ringgit worth of debts. Okay? In a year, that debt was wiped out. The company only plied a few routes, Langkawi, Kota Kinabalu, Kuching, if I'm not wrong, at a point in time. So, like they say, the rest is history, but it all started with the dream of these two people. So one of the mantras in AirAsia, and I think it's a good thing for us to have as well, is always dream the impossible. Many of us give up halfway through, right? But I think it's not a bad thing to just have a dream, to believe in yourself as well. These guys persisted. There was a time when the company had no money to pay payroll, salary, but they persisted as well. So it started this way. So you're right, Joe, is it? So this is one of the mantras that the company has, and I can tell you that this is only 3 examples of people who started off in a certain position in the company, potentially low ranking, and they have a dream. People like guest services staff who want to be pilots. So they go up to Tony and say, Tony, I want to be a pilot. And Tony says, okay, go and enroll yourself in the academy. If you pass through all the requirements and all that, you become a pilot. And that's what happens. There was one girl, not this one, there was one girl, a Thai girl, who was a cabin crew. She actually dreamed of being a beauty queen. So she joined a Miss Thailand competition and she won Miss Thailand. She continued to be a crew, and then she said she wanted to be a pilot. Today she's still a pilot in Thai AirAsia and she's a captain already. So there are stories like that in the company. It makes you feel as if things can happen. Now, I have some videos later, if there's time I'll show you guys, but essentially these are only 3 examples of people who started off doing something, and they moved on to something else. And I can tell you also that I'm the kind of person who actually stayed in one function essentially throughout my career. That's marketing and sales. But there are some people who move on from one function to another. So Ariel, you can still be something else if you want to move on. Paul, from being a lawyer, became something else, right? And that something is much better, right? I shouldn't tell my daughter that yet. So all I'm trying to say is that as long as first of all, we all work for something. The base is to make money. And halfway through, if you feel that that job might not be right for me, there's something else that I want to do. Actually, you don't have to leave your company. If the company is big enough, like AirAsia, you can actually go to that other function and say, I want a job in your department. In AirAsia, we encourage that a lot. You can say to your boss, I want to move on to another department. And if there's a fit, we will accommodate that. All right? Now, one of the things also that we kind of pride ourselves in is the fact that the company places quite a lot of emphasis on a set of values. And the topmost value is actually fun. It is actually a fun place to work. We have a department called Culture. And that department organizes paintball retreats, they organize badminton competitions, what have you. Employees' birthdays, we celebrate it. Things like Hari Raya and Chinese New Year, every department will start getting in the line dancers and all that. So the company puts a lot of emphasis on fun. And there used to be, at one point in time, every Friday you come to work dressed in some themes. Polka dots or miniskirts or whatever. I couldn't keep up. So, we stopped that.
Especially the miniskirts.
But it's a really crazy, fun place to work, because if you guys remember, just a while back, maybe about 8 months ago, Sir Richard Branson actually came on top of one of our aircrafts, and he flew from Perth to KL dressed as a flight attendant, female flight attendant. His legs were shaven. They made him up and put a wig on him and all that. So we do things like that. We do things like that. And if Tony had lost the bet to him, Tony would have made, I think he wouldn't have made such a nice looking flight attendant. So you know how it came about, right? Both of them made a bet to see which one's Formula One team ended up ahead of the other. All right? That whole Richard Branson thing, I think, appeared on the first page of the Star and gives a lot of publicity. We are a caring company as well. We do recruit a lot of underprivileged people, even the OKUs, if you like. Hardworking doesn't quite just describe things. I mean, we work Saturdays, Sundays, phones are on throughout the weekends. Sometimes there's a habit of Friday evening, you're told that you're going to be attending a meeting on Monday morning, and you spend the whole weekend preparing it. So yeah, you have those kind of situations, but at the back of it all, again, there's flexibility. Sometimes if you have worked 3-4 weekends in a row, you just take off, that's fine. So it's a very performance-based company, but they give you a lot of flexibility in managing your own job. Obviously, we're very passionate. That passion itself comes from the co-founders of the company. Tony is a person who essentially does not sleep. When he calls for a meeting, he can talk and talk and talk without drinking water, without going to the toilet, and he talks forever. Last week we were in Jakarta, and the meeting started at 10 o'clock, it ended at 12 midnight. Generally, he spoke for three quarters of the time. So he has that amount of passion in things, not just in what he does, but also in people. Now, the amount of businesses that Tony is in now, together with his partners, besides aviation, anybody can answer me? What else does he do?
Hotels.
Yes, and this one no prizes. Hotels.
Insurance. F1.
Say again. Insurance.
F1.
F1.
Football.
Football.
So concert graphics.
Yes, lots of things. Essentially, if you think about the industries that he's in, some of them happen a little bit by accident. Now, the story of Tune Insurance started when he wanted to insure passengers. So he went to some insurance companies, but the story that I heard is that none of them wanted to underwrite. So he said, what the heck, let me start my own insurance company. So that's the kind of person he is. If he comes to a brick wall, he does it himself. And a lot of other things are coming up as I speak. The fun thing about working in AirAsia is that we are not just about airlines today. There are many other things that's happening, some of which I'm sure you'll read about it sooner than later as well. We are very safety conscious, not just flying alone, but within the offices as well. Things like, what you normally call OSH, occupational safety and health issues and whatnot, are taken care of very distinctively in the company. So every week we have a cleanliness campaign. We walk the tarmacs and whatnot and pick up what we call foreign objects. Because foreign objects, like a mineral water bottle, if it's sucked into the jet engine, it will destroy the engine and it will cause a lot of hardships and whatnot. So that's very important. Integrity obviously is another key thing. If Tony finds that you are stealing from him, out you go, no matter how many years you have spent with him. And he has a knack of smelling that as well. So this is the elements that we put ourselves in. But beyond all that as well, I think it's also about the element of, maybe it's a bit of French here, if I may use it. AirAsia is a very ballsy company. We do a lot of things which a lot of companies will not do as well. And I'll show you some examples later on. Now, finally, I think what keeps us going also is the kind of recognition that we get from people who fly with us. This thing called the Skytrax, it's something that's voted in by people who have flown with us, the experts in the industry. And we've actually won this award 5 years in a row, from 2009. Not bad for a made in Malaysia brand. And I think arguably besides Petronas, if I can think of any, I think AirAsia is probably the only other Malaysian brand that's made some presence as well. We hope we will continue winning this award. It means a lot to us to win this award because it is voted in by our guests. The other thing that AirAsia does well as well is we have something called AirAsia Brain, which is like a virtual mailbox that you populate with ideas. So any ideas that works commercially, at the end of it, you get something credited to you. So anybody from a technician to a web developer, you can throw in ideas. And these ideas are actually shared as well. Okay? Some of the things that we do, like we said, football, motorsports and whatnot. Football is a very interesting one. The people who know me well will know that I'm a very staunch football fan. Not of this club. And they will never see me wear any other team's jersey. It was when I joined AirAsia that I started wearing QPR. And I told them that is my working clothes, it's my uniform. So now, just the last slide, I wanted to share with you what we meant by being ballsy. I don't know whether you can read this. Starting from here, if tigers were meant to fly, they would be born with wings. That was actually a dig at Tiger Rare a while back when they first started operating. The second one, it says, our low fares are so red hot, others are turning blue. Any ideas? MAS were previously red, more red than anything else, and they changed their colors to blue. So that's one. We've got the stripes guaranteed to fly every day. Another dig at Tiger. as in the stripes within the word STRIPES. Now this one is one of my favorites. AirAsia tames even the wildest tiger with low fares, Singapore to Bangkok. Again, a dig at tiger. We have a couple of others. When we first started flying to Singapore, we launched a campaign that says, the new girl in town, half the price and twice the fun. When we first launched our sponsorship with QPR, we started a campaign that say, the airlines with balls. So things like that we do. Lately, we have gone away from that a bit. To be honest with you, obviously, there are certain things that we are trying to revamp as well internally. But the company will continue to be gutsy about things. The company will continue to be very passionate about the things that we do. And essentially, one of the reasons why I joined AirAsia is because most of the values that the company has are the values that I live by as well. It is not an easy company to work in. I can tell you that. There are times when I wake up in the morning and I don't feel like going to work. But as long as those times are not that many, and you have more pat on the back moments and that keeps you going, then I think it's time for you to continue proceeding as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have prepared. If you want, I can share some videos with you. If not, I can take some questions perhaps and see what you have to ask. Please, Yash.
From what I heard, Tiger Airways actually thanks you all for running the app because it put them on the map.
Well, it can work both ways. I think any kind of publicity is good. I've always believed in my 20 over years of marketing, even bad publicity is good, is publicity. I think that works both ways. There are times during my P1 days, and I'm not sure how many of you can remember, when we came out with a Potong campaign, TM actually retaliated with their own campaign. My boss, my CEO at the point in time was a guy called Michael Lai. And TM actually found somebody who looks like Michael Lai, who looks like him, putting the modem out of the window trying to get signal.
Wow.
So it was a very a tit for tat kind of a campaign. But I was advising my bosses at that point in time, don't worry, they actually, like you said, Niraj, it actually helped us as well. So I think it can work both ways. No issues with that.
I benefited from the showdown between P1 and TM.
You did, huh? What happened?
TM was my client, like, how P1 spending this amount of money, I can spend more.
But you see, I think what is interesting for me anyway is the fact that sometimes we can get too engrossed in a competition between two brands and two companies. We do not know that the impact that we have on everybody else. At the end of the day, actually, it's a cross-industry thing. At that point in time, I think that fight between TM and P1 actually benefited the other telcos as well. You know, so it was interesting. Anything else? Any questions? Kim, you wanted to ask me something else?
No, actually, I want to ask you something else. Not really related. How do you know if you're ready to start?
Oh gosh. You see, I can't answer that question because I've never started on my own yet.
Maybe you don't want to.
In a way, I'll tell you my philosophy in life. I've always told people that maybe it's because of my background that I can sacrifice my time and my mind, but I can't sacrifice my money. So if it's going to ask me to put money into a venture that I might lose tons of money on, then I will hesitate. But you ask me to be engaged in a project where you just want my time and my mind, I don't mind. Why is that so? I don't have that much money to burn, and the money that I have is hard earned. I'm not a gambler. I just don't know how to gamble. So, sorry, if it's something that requires me to mortgage a house and whatnot, even though the returns are very good, I will say no to it. When is the time? I think the time will come for me, and it's coming soon, by the way, I think, when I feel that I do not want to hold down a full-time job anymore. I want a bit more time to stop and smell the roses, maybe travel a lot more on leisure rather than on work, and kind of like go at a slightly slower pace than I am now. I still work like 14, 16 hours a day, even on weekends, so that's not what I want to do in the next couple of years. For those of you who are younger, I think if you are entrepreneurial, you will know it. You will know it yourself. You won't be happy just earning the income every month. You are always thinking of fresh new ideas. You go up to your bosses, they don't listen to you. You go and talk to your other friends. Your friends say you should come out and do business. To me, those are the people that should go out and do business. And honestly speaking, the earlier you start, the better. Because why? Even if you do not do well, you can go back into employment. If I go out today and I fail, who's going to employ a ex-year-old man? Right? So the younger you are, the better. If I had started off in my 30s, perhaps I think I could have sacrificed a couple of years and gone back to employment if I wasn't successful.
I've read articles before and things like that. And if you're not ready to let go of your security, you can also do it if you're really hardworking enough. You can do it after work.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
Successful people, like I just recently read about T.S. Eliot, the writer. He was a banker, like a famous banker in London. And in the evenings, he would actually go back and write essays and influence people.
Absolutely. And you can do that now in today's world because of the wonders of technology as well. Internet businesses are relatively easier to do, right? But if you work 16-hour days like me, the only other work that you want to have in your free time is sleep. You don't have any other time for anything else. But you're absolutely right. I think, again, it goes back to the time when you're younger, because when you have other commitments, I think Raymond talked about change in priorities. When you have a family and you need to spend time with your young kids and all that, it becomes a bit difficult. But I've known people who have 3 jobs at one time. Three jobs at one time. Now, interestingly, again, AirAsia is a company that doesn't have major issues. You have other things. One of my colleagues, a girl called Rim Shawa, she's a celebrity. She does spots on Astro. She does some emceeing. She's going into radio now. She's one of our sports marketing people. So we have one kind of celebrity pilot as well called JFK. He DJs on Red FM. So Johan flies AirAsia X as a pilot. So we have cases like that. But personally, I don't think I have the bandwidth to do 2 jobs. I'm the kind of person who probably want to have one and try to do it as best as I can. Anybody else? Yes, Jonathan.
A lot of people change jobs because they don't like their jobs or things like that. What advice would you give to people who like their job or love their job but not good at their job?
Well, 2 things. It depends on whether it's salvageable or not salvageable. Whether that can be salvaged, it's a matter of whether that person can be developed or not. If it cannot be developed, you've got to look at him in the eyes and say, move on. Don't waste your time. But if it's something that can be salvaged, then if I were to be this person's boss, and by the way, I strongly believe in what we call performance appraisals or one-to-one meetings. If that person can be developed further, then it's the duty of the immediate superior to actually find ways to help that person. And development can work both ways. Technical skills, where you can actually send that person to courses on the job training, and the other one could be managerial leadership skills, which can be also honed. Paul and John are experts at that, But I subscribe with that. If the person can be helped, you've got to find all the ways to help him. Because from what I hear about you, that person has passion, that person has commitment and love within what he does. Very hard to find, that kind of person. But if he's not good at it for whatever reason, we got to help him to improve. But if the person is just lousy, doesn't have the up here and whatnot, then you got to tell him, no, sorry, you will never succeed in this job. Then facilitate the movement to something else that you think you can do very well. So I think that's kind of like turning a negative into a positive. I have come across situations like that before, and I've had to, what we do, I think Paul might remember this, we sometimes try for 6 months to a year, and if it still doesn't work, then it's time to have a sit down and say, look, I think it's time to evaluate other options. But at least give it a try. I would very much like to have that person, because having love and passion in what you do is something extremely rare, not easy. Sorry, Niraj, you had a question?
What was your single biggest obstacle throughout your career? This is a 2-part question. How did you overcome it?
I'll be tempted to say it's bosses. Kind of hard for me to go into it without details, but I believe I'm one of those people who put myself hook, line and sinker into a job. I don't think I'm the kind of person who needs to be told what to do. You don't slack on the job and all that. But it's times when you don't have alignment with your boss, he or she doesn't think that what you do is what he wants, even though you think that's really the kind of KPIs that we have set, or you just can't get along with each other from the point of view of personality. Two things can happen. One is you try to talk to him or her and iron out what kind of disagreements that you have. In my case so far, I'll be honest with you, it hasn't worked very well. So what do? I choose to move away. I choose to walk out. Because I'll find it very hard to work with a person that I can't get along with, no matter how much you love that company or that job. So after 1 or 2 times of talking and trying to rationalize things and try to see eye to eye, if it still doesn't work, he probably will not leave, much as I think you were the one who said ask your boss to go, right? So you have to make the decision to go. Because I will always feel that if this job or this company doesn't believe in me enough, doesn't think that I can do it, I'll go to the next person who values me more. And I think I am one of those people who can work much better with somebody who believes in me, have faith in me, than somebody who doesn't. So that's as direct as an answer that I can give you. I can tell you that the couple of times that I've had to go is because I come to a point where I just can't see eye to eye. And you know, after a while, it's futile. It's just not worth your breath.
It's very interesting coming from a boss.
I'll share something with you guys, right? As naive as I was when I was in my early parts of my career, you think that you climb all the way from rank and file onto a CEO's position, and that's it, right? You made it, right? So guess what happens when you climb up to the top of the pyramid? There's an inverted pyramid on top, the board of directors. So when you become a CEO, you can have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bosses. And board of directors, every one of them will have different opinions. Okay? They all pay the sum of money to challenge you, to audit you, and one simple request or comment means 1/4 of soul searching just to answer that question. Building business cases, validating things and all that. Okay? So there was a point in time, I asked myself this question, should I go out on my own so that I don't have to answer to anybody? Right? Well, guess what? If you're an entrepreneur, if you're a businessman, who are your bosses? Your workers. They can leave you high and dry. Sorry, Now, especially if you work in a restaurant, right? You get the best cooks, the best chefs. These guys, business is thriving, and these guys decide to go away. You're dead. So, it always goes back to the question of people. So, as far as I'm concerned, going up to that nice little place, nice position called the CEO, you have to deal with other challenges as well, and you must be prepared for it.
So how many times did you leave the boss? It can't be BAT.
Twice. BAT was one. Yeah.
After 20 years, after...
Oh, in BAT we had many bosses. I think throughout my career I must have like more than 10 bosses, because we change bosses like overnight. It's a true multinational company where the company the company's culture and whatnot doesn't depend on one person, but it's a company set of values. AirAsia is a bit different. P1 is very different because P1's culture is kind of set by the owner. Same with AirAsia as well. And when we change bosses in BAT, most of the time you can handle it. You can just kind of adapt to it. Yeah? But there comes a point in time when and I was maybe in a difficult situation at a point in time when I felt that I was thrust into situations where this is all the bad things come to me and all the good things I don't get. All right, and I was at a point in my career where I was knocking to go up further. If I don't go up further, that's it. I'm going to remain stagnant there for like I don't know how long. And I knew the clock was ticking. If I didn't get up further, of which I will stay, I need to move on to another industry. Otherwise, I will come to a stage where I can't learn anymore. Right? You'll come to a point in time where your grey matter becomes a bit rigid, rusty. You can't learn anymore. So at the point in time, 42, I felt I could still learn, but I had to unlearn. I just had to unlearn. 6 months after I quit, I did absolutely nothing. I didn't look for a job. I just, what I did was, I had some investments here and there, just looked into it a little bit more. I lost weight. I lost 7 kilograms, and I went running, yoga with my wife, swimming, golf, whatever. And I lost weight. I paid a lot more attention to myself. I was actually a house husband because my wife was working. I woke up at 5 in the morning, made breakfast, saw them off to school, and went back to bed. And then I did some housework, went to the market, bought fish, cut, cooked, everything. And I found I liked it actually. I liked it, yeah. And it was only after 6 months that I decided that I need to go back to the job market. And from tobacco, the only thing I knew was that I must go into a company that is relatively consumer friendly and has got pretty good marketing budget. So that was when the telcos came. So I went to the reds and the yellows and the greens before this company took me up. Now the other companies obviously didn't want to take me because I didn't have the relevant experience, and going in at the level it was I can understand that. So yeah, 2 times. Be very honest.
Any more questions for me?
Anything, you can ask me anything personal as well. No issues.
I believe in certain cultures that you have, but being a leader, how do you influence others? What are the things?
Oh, that's a very loaded one. I think if I can go back to the times when I started working in the tobacco company, like I said, I was 24 years old, right? And I inherited a small team. Under me, there were 2 sales supervisors and then the sales representatives, right? I remember my sales supervisor, he was based in Seremban. He was actually 1 year older than my father. And his younger son was 1 year older than me. And I had to, I was his boss. So it was like that from the beginning lah. I'm sure he felt that, this young graduate coming in, knows nothing. I came from the school of hard knocks, having worked like 15, 20 years. So who is he to tell me what to do, right? So what I actually had to do within the first few months was not to lead, but to be led. I allowed myself to be led by him. I worked with him in the market. I learned about how to handle our dealers, how to handle customers. I talked to him about his achievements and whatnot. You've heard the whole story about listening to people, asking people questions. It is very true. You sit down with people, you sit in a van with them, traveling for an hour to a Felda scheme and an hour back. You've got nothing to do but talk, right? So we talked about his son, who happened to be learning to be a doctor at that point in time. So we talked about his family and stuff like that. Eventually he softened and he taught me a lot of things, and I valued that. So every occasion that I have when he did something good, I will personally compliment him in front of everybody. So there came a point in time, maybe 3 months, 6 months later, when I had to lead then, I will only reprimand him if I needed to, in the privacy of a place where just the 2 of us. And he valued that as well. I'll share with you something else. Maybe it's me only, but I don't know, it works for me. It also helps if you take the time to mingle with people, with your colleagues after office hours. It is a bit threatening, I think, for people to come to your office or your desk or whatever, sitting down in front of you, and there's always this divider, which is your table. Nowadays, laptop as well. There's a barrier, right? Discussions like that in the office doesn't work for me. People still feel threatened. They will still clamp themselves up, and they will not be able to actually tell you what's on their mind. So what I normally do is I talk to people outside, right? If your religion doesn't forbid you to drink, alcohol helps. I'll be honest with you. It helps loosen the tongue, and the inhibitions will be lesser. They will tell you the real issues, and you learn about other people as well. This guy, that guy, that guy. Yeah. So when you talk to 3, 4, 5 persons who say the same thing about that person, something must be right. But you still need to judge yourself lah. So I felt that getting out of the office environment actually helps because, number one, neutralizes the home and away thing. And if you go to where he chooses to go to or she chooses to go to, that person will think he has got an advantage. But that's fine. That's fine. Now, last but not least, I think if the person comes to you with an issue that he or she cannot solve, and if you promise to him or her that you will help to solve the issue, you make sure you don't forget it. You can lie to a person once, you can forget once, twice, and that's it. Nobody will believe you anymore. So I think fulfilling your promise or your commitment to somebody is very important. You know, the mantra that we live by, now everyone can fly, it is really a true thing. We see a lot of people who fly for the first time. Do you know people who go to the airports, they don't even know that you need a boarding pass to fly. They will just bring their bags wanting to go into the door to the aircraft. But essentially that's what we do. Now guys, if you allow me, I'm just going to show you a very short video about the whole idea and the whole thing behind low-cost airlines. It might help you to understand us better, the company and the industry as well. It might also help you to understand why certain times you might not get the fares that you want as well. It's a very short video. Bear with me for a while.
Hello there. Remember when flying used to cost you an arm and a leg? Well, not anymore. Here's a little peek into the world of low-cost travel the AirAsia way. Let's start off with our greatest asset, our people. All of our cabin crew, pilots, engineers, and ground operations staff graduate from an academy where they are trained to be the best, be professional, and adhere to global safety standards while having fun. At AirAsia, we call ourselves all-stars, and we believe that in everything we do, it's all for one, one for all. Bet you've heard of us. We're a talented bunch. Just how talented? Take for example our cabin crew. They multitask, from prepping a flight and serving to cleaning the cabin and disembarking guests within 25 minutes to prepare for the next flight. All of that while being really generous with smiles, just to ensure you get a fun flying experience. As for our planes, we operate on a fleet of Airbus A320s, where 180 single-class plush leather seats are fitted. There's no business class. That means more guests share the cost of one flight. Operating on one aircraft type allows for streamlined maintenance, as the A320 is more fuel efficient thanks to features like the wingtip device. These babies allow us to fly more while you pay less. Speaking of paying less, we use a fare bucket system that is made up of promo, discounted, and full-priced fares. As the travel days get closer, the price increases, so grab your seats early to enjoy our low fares. Unlike full-service carriers, with us, there are no frills, just the essentials. Baggage, seat assignment, insurance, hot meals, or all of that. For a personalized traveling experience with AirAsia, you have the option to pick only what you need, so you don't spend unnecessarily. Better yet, you also have the option to pre-book your necessities for real savings. Not to be missed, earn points to redeem your next flight as you make purchases with AirAsia's big loyalty program. That's not where it ends. Once we're on ground, we operate on a 25-minute turnaround. This allows us to spend less time on ground and more time in the air. You will also notice that we board and disembark guests with steps instead of an aerobridge, which means, yes, you pay less for your flight. Best at getting you from point A to point B, we keep our flights within a 4-hour radius, and that is why we have many other hubs to extend our reach across Asia and beyond. Our network is part of what makes the AirAsia experience so enjoyable. The fact that you can hop around and chart your own path. To continue serving you, we are constantly expanding our network and innovating the way you fly. With AirAsia, now everyone can fly.
That's it. Short and sweet. Thank you. Thanks for your attention.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.